Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm thrilled to chat with director Kristian Mercado. Kristian's currently solidifying himself as one of the top directors for comedians to hire for their comedy specials with the release of Aida Rodriguez Fighting Words over on HBO Max. Kristian has also directed specials for Phoebe Robinson, Hannibal Buress, Ilana Glazer, and Michael Che. His psychedelic animated short, Nuevo Rico, debuted at the 2021 South by Southwest Film Festival, garnering the prestigious Animation Jury Award. On the music front, Kristian's directed content for artists such as Billie Eilish, Bad Bunny, and De La Soul. We discuss all that, how directing stand-up differs from other genres, what he loves about filmmaking, and much more. It's a fun interview, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, Kristian. Thanks so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. I'm excited to be here.
So, one of the things that I've always found interesting about directing is the different projects that you take on kind of have like a slightly different skill set. And I remember talking to Brian Volk-Weiss from Comedy Dynamics and now Nacelle about kind of this weird niche of stand-up comedy specials, and this kind of harkening back to concert films and really having to work to get someone else's material across, which can be a little different than, being an auteur director of your own script and no one else touches it. Can you talk a little bit about getting into that space and how you work that relationship with, comedians as varied as Hannibal Buress to Aida to Michael Che?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the way I kind of approach it is that you want to honor the material you're kind of shooting. And I think it's kind of about kind of staying true and authentic to the voice of the comedian. So you kind of find, I think, what the comedian's not even trying to say, but just kind of what the material is kind of truthfully kind of conveying. And then I try to make it so that there's a cinematic sort of interpretation of that, and then try to kind of create an aesthetic surrounding that. And I definitely was when I first started getting into it, it's interesting because it is kind of when you think about the live performance space, I kind of did look at The Last Waltz, which was kind of I think it is the concert movie, right? In terms of live shooting, it's kind of whoa, that's the standard, right? The best of the best. And I looked at that and I kind of asked myself the question, has anyone thought of comedy in that kind of perspective, I did look back at some of the old specials where when, the Richard Pryor era of comedy specials were kind of actually playing in cinemas, so there's kind of a language there that, it existed as a cinematic language and was shot on film. And so there was something about it that felt precious, and the word special kind of had a value to it, So I think inherently in the work I try to do, I try to kind of call back to those things and kind of bring that back to the table and try to bring the idea of a special actually being special again by having a signature or by having something that makes it work. The material itself is always going to be powerful based on the comic and kind of truthful to them. But I think it's trying to find the thing that becomes the signature of it, I think is important.
And so on something like Nuevo Rico, which your animated short film, which got into South by Southwest 21 and did great. When you're coming at something that's a little more your style, out of your brain, does that process work different for you, or does it just kind of feel like you've got a different client now yourself?
I kind of just really am attracted to authenticity, joy, and just a feeling, even if the feeling is sadness too, or laughter, things that kind of evoke a reaction is kind of what I crave the most. And when I was working on Nuevo Rico, that's kind of an odd combination of I want to say psychedelics and medicine sort of, where it has kind of this truthfulness to it about telling you something about colonization, but it's kind of digestible, I think, in the way that it treats it, where it's not so preachy necessarily or not in your face, but it's kind of there and digestible, and like all this like kind of surface candy level stuff that exists in it can kind of almost help you on that journey, you know? Like someone I think smarter than I said once that, you know, if you want to like convince a kid to like learn how to drink milk, you start off with chocolate milk and little by little start like giving them less chocolate, you know, and then eventually they just learn how to drink milk. And so I think when I was working on Nuevo Rico, that was kind of my approach, you know, and I think anytime I work on something that's just like my own, I try to think of like bringing my personality or my own taste into everything. So like I try not to blur the line. Like I don't try to like create the line necessarily. I like to blur the line where like, you know, I'm as invested in the work based on, as long as I feel the passion for it, I'll invest myself fully and kind of try to bring a perspective into it, you know? So, yeah, I think there's definitely I'm definitely a little bit weirder when I work on stuff like Nuevo Rico though. It's like there's not as many rails, you know?
Yeah. When it comes to doing a music video with a band, for instance, I'm from Austin. Black Pumas are fantastic, and
oh yeah, I love them.
And that your video for Colors is really great. When it comes to coming up with something that's not, you know, it's not like you made a narrative short film that's you know got like an act structure or something, but there's blocks of stories there. There's kind of the pieces of narratives that do pull you in as a viewer to watch these people live their lives and such in the song. When it comes to making a story, putting those pieces together and kind of finding what you want to visually tell, how does that interplay go back and forth with the artist? Do you talk to the band from the jump, or do you kind of come in with, hey guys, I heard this song and this is what it is?
With Black Pumas specifically, I had gone to this place in Florida called Banana Records, which is like a huge mega record store. And they were playing, before they had become really kind of super popular, they were playing the song, I believe it was Colors actually. And I kind of listened to the song and I asked the guy at the counter, like, hey, what is that song? And he told me that was, you know, the band's name. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're not like, at first I had thought that they were like an older band or something, but to find out they were like a contemporary band with that sound, I was just like really excited. So I did some research and reached out directly and I asked them if they were cool with me directing that video. And I had kind of come up with a treatment based on like the feeling the song gave me. But I had talked to the lead singer a bit, Eric, and we kind of bounced around a little bit about just, I think during his time where he was kind of like transient and like kind of, you know, at some point in my life, I was a little transient too, where I wasn't like, I had unhomed, you know, or unhoused, you know, so like he had a period of his life that way too. And we kind of bonded over that. And I felt like making a story surrounding the idea of like there still being family and humanity, despite not like the home is really kind of like the family. And so I think I kind of created the story around that feeling. And that was kind of like what evoked that. And I was kind of, I try to bridge the gap between cinema and music video when I do work in music videos as much as possible. So like, I was definitely cognizant of like trying to make something that felt like there was an emotion to it attached, because the song is really emotional. The song has got a lot of beauty to it. And while it might not thematically, the song might not be thematically about that specific subject or anything, it, I think like the visual kind of help, like it feels like it marries to the song in some really powerful, interesting way. And I think people walk away kind of like moved, I think, for the most part, which I feel like that's what I was seeking out the most.
One of the things that in all of your work, the visual quality of it looks great. I mean, the actual equipment down to the choices you're making, and it also fits the project. And I know, I mean, everybody's got a camera on their phone now, but when you start talking about lenses and cameras and choices that you need to make something look good, it could be really overwhelming as a learning curve. Do you remember a moment where you ran into that wall of man, I just want to
Mm.
squint my eyes and make something beautiful happen, but I got to learn this stupid tech first.
Uh, I've always kind of like felt it out, like I've always like just been drawn to stuff and like if I kind of just eye it out sometimes, and specifically for Black Pumas, it was a really piecemeal project. So we shot on multiple stocks. So some of it is on Red camera, some of it is on Alexa, some of it is on 16 millimeter, and it's super mixed media, actually, which is crazy. I think a lot of times people try to shoot something and it always has like one film vocabulary. And I think like my approach has become more like kind of loosening that up, where like it's cool when things kind of jump around sometimes and like become different styles. And I think the desire to experiment was kind of like what bore that. So like back in the day when I was making stuff on a lower budget, I think sometimes the constraints are helpful because it makes you think of like oh, what can I do with this, or what do I do in a day with this camera? So I think I was always like kind of learning as I went, and I was always like curious, but I was always like, also kind of embracing the flaw or the limitation and like leaning into it, because like I think like anything is defined by its time. So like, people are really attracted to say like a VHS aesthetic now, right? And it's all like kind of grimy and lo-fi, and it's got like all this vintage quality and degradation, right? But all that stuff are like mistakes that back when that medium existed, people were like, oh, we don't want those mistakes on it. But then somehow the flaw of it is what defines it, right? So like now we're kind of attracted to it, and it's interesting how the flaw becomes the signature of a medium.
Absolutely.
So like, yeah, so I kind of speak that out, like I'm always like, even in our modern times, I'm like, what's kind of like, does it need to be perfect? Like maybe we let it be a little dirty and see what happens.
Yeah, sometimes I think it feels like there's this kind of escalator of like inevitable, well, it's just got to get to a faster frame rate and a higher resolution, and yeah, frequently the limitations of those previous mediums become part of the story. And so now, if you're going to tell me something about the 80s, that is an immediate thing you can do, and it'll put me there. Yeah, even down to sound design, machine clicks versus, but I love little stuff like that. Where we're choosing purposely to go back a step to have the tone be right, or have the something be a little different about the story.
Totally.
You've also gotten the opportunity to expand. I know, if I'm reading correctly, Nuevo Rico, you're going to get to work into a feature length.
Yeah, we're kind of like in the beginning sort of stages of like rethinking how Nuevo Rico works as a feature, and kind of approaching that, and kind of it's a bit of a process, but kind of like thinking through how to make that a bigger story.
And when it comes to getting to expand out things like that, was that absolutely the first one you wanted to do? Of man, if I get the opportunity, I'm making this thing into a feature, or
yeah.
Or do you have other projects in the works that you really look forward to?
I can't really talk about the other stuff I have cooking, but yeah, Nuevo Rico has definitely been something. I don't know. It's interesting because when I was in college, I was making really experimental videos with some of this like kind of cyberpunky, sort of old energy sort of stuff. So it's really interesting that somehow that has come back in my life in like a bigger way. And I guess it's just never left me, because I used to like make these really experimental videos when I was younger. And I think that it's interesting to think about. Like, I think that stuff has kind of been with me for a long time. And so I've always been such a big fan of animation, and like worked in animation a lot. And I've always been a fan of telling stories from like different perspectives, like where it's like old and new kind of combined to make something different. So it was just really exciting. I think once I finished the short, I kind of always felt like, oh, there's like more to this story than just what's here, because it has such an open-ended nature, and it's kind of like such a rich world that I really want to explore it more, you know?
Well, I can't wait to see what happens with that. Folks can go check out Che's Shame the Devil. Aida Rodriguez, Fighting Words is over on HBO. Phoebe Robinson's Sorry Harriet Tubman. Really, I can't thank you enough for your time today. This is great.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. This has been like so great.
Total side note, I just recently got to see Phil Tippett's Mad God. I'm not sure if you've gotten to see that, but I think you'd love it. It's been this stop.
Oh, I'll definitely.
He's the stop motion guy. It's called Mad God. Tippett he's the guy that did the back on Jurassic Park. I think was the last big stop.
Oh
motion.
yeah.
He was the stop motion dude for so long. And Mad God just looks like an hour and a half long tool video.
Definitely need to see that.
Yeah, that somebody worked on for decades. It's wild. You just can't believe that you'll.
That sounds so cool.
I know you'll know the hours that it had. You'll see the time on the screen and appreciate it. It's amazing.
Yeah, can't wait. Oh my God, thank you for the tip. I appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
All right, you too, man.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.